Soldiers marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe, forward into battle, see his banners go. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Oh, for a faith that will not shrink, though pressed by every foe, that will not tremble on the brink of any earthly woe, that will not murmur or complain beneath a chastening rod, but in the hour of grief or pain will lean upon its God. A faith that shines more bright and clear when tempests rage without, that when in danger knows no fear, in darkness feels no doubt. Lord, give us such a faith as this, and then whatever may come, we'll taste and hear the hallowed bliss of an eternal home. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never-dying soul to save, and fitted for the sky, to serve the present age, my calling to fulfill. Oh, may it all my powers engage to do my Master's will. Arm me with jealous care, as in thy sight to live, and O thy servant, Lord, prepare a strict account to give. Help me to watch and pray, and on thyself rely. Assured if I my trust betray, I shall forever die. Rise up, O men of God, have done with lesser things. Give heart and mind and soul and strength to serve the King of Kings. Rise up, O men of God, his kingdom tarries long. Bring in the day of brotherhood and end the night of wrong. Rise up, O men of God, the church for you doth wait. Her strength unequal to her task, rise up and make her great. Lift high the cross of Christ, tread where his feet have trod. As brothers of the Son of Man, rise up, O men of God. Good evening. Let's edify the saints of professionalism and shenanigans, and here's Levi.
Let's
Hello,
edify.
brother. Let's edify.
They're just now getting to the prayer.
Uh,
So, not because of my reading, because somebody had to walk, he says 60 acres. We only have 3 of those acres, so I don't know where he was at.
uh, from the King Most High.
No, somebody else already has that title. And that crown.
Right. That's the song I was gonna sing. We can sing some songs as we wait for
Um,
prayer and
you go ahead and sing. My voice is pretty well almost shot, so
from
I'm going to sit over
the
here. I'm going to sit over here and I'm going to eat my animal crackers.
earth, from the earth, from the sky, breaks forth the joyful cry. Our Lord is King, Most High, crucified, He revived. That's why He's King Most High. My Lord is great and good, and He will hear my cry. He'll ever live and ever reign, my Lord and King Most High. Humble birth, on the world, tell angel voice sang forth, a king is born this day. Then the earth was aware, its hope had come to stay. My Lord is great and good, and He will hear my cry. He'll ever live and ever reign, my Lord and King Most High. Words He gave made to words He gave me to say, by words He led the way. This Lord and King, this Lord and King to be, then alone, blood and tongue, His life He gave to me. My Lord is great and good, and He'll hear my cry. He'll ever live and ever reign, my Lord and King Most High. Darkest night, He came, life for me He regained. A prophet ne'er to die, a prophet ne'er to die. Praise forever on His throne. Lord God, my King, Lord God, my King, Most High. My Lord is great and good, and You will hear my cry. You ever live and ever reign, my Lord and King Most High. I butchered that one terribly.
I
It's
wouldn't
been,
know. I've never sung it. Never heard it.
oh, okay. Should we get started or should we wait some more?
Well, we can probably wait a little bit. I think Angie was coming, and I know Sam was going to come. So
Okay. I'm the way.
I thought you were just
I
like,
I am the way. I am the truth. I am the light. I am the light. I am the sun. Am the Lord. I am the King. I am the Christ. I am the bread. I am the blood. I am the food. I am the last. Believe in me. Be not afraid. Come unto me. I am the way. Have you heard that one, Levi?
no.
New song Gloria.
Huh? Well, you got to remember, I haven't been to camp in like how long?
Right.
Almost. Well, I haven't been camping like 30, almost 30 years.
I guess I don't have to keep singing and banishing you to the corner.
No, I leave just so that you can actually, um, so you don't have to. People don't have to watch me eat my animal crackers. I'm
Uh,
hungry. I haven't had
hey,
supper yet.
reading must have ended. We got one viewer.
One.
Two. How about one more and then we'll get
Two viewers.
into it.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Really, this should have been like the opening song, but here we go. Lord, we come before thee now.
Hi,
Lord,
Gloria.
we... Hello, Gloria. Lord, we come before thee now. At thy feet we humbly bow. Oh, do not our sins disdain. Shall we seek thee, Lord, in vain? Shall we seek thee, Lord, in vain? Lord, on thee our souls depend. In compassion now descend. Fill our hearts with thy rich grace, tune our lips to sing thy grace, tune our lips to sing thy praise. In thine own appointed way, now we seek thee, here we stand. Lord, we know not how to go. Help us in the bestow, to a blessing thou bestow. Grant that all may seek and find thee, a God supremely kind. Heal the sick, the captive free. Let us all rejoice in thee. Let us all rejoice in thee. All right. Well,
Wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off, wax on.
yeah. One, two.
Hi, Sam. Hello, Reba.
So, do we got take yet?
I don't know.
Or
Hang on, let me find out. Well, eventually we will. I hear him out in the kitchen, so maybe you playing tech? Okay, then get in there.
all right.
She's coming.
So, we're in the book of Acts, and that is my dumb Mr. Obvious. I have to say that every time now. We're in the
Yeah.
book of Acts study. And I'm not the one reviewing tonight.
Yeah.
I was almost ready to start reviewing, but that is your job now.
As we pick up tonight, we begin by reviewing Acts 23 because that's where we just finished. Acts 23, a lot happened. Paul begins his defense among the council, or before the council, by declaring his life to be free of guilt before God until that day. At which point the high priest says, "Slap that dude." I'm paraphrasing, of course. And Paul says, "Well, God will slap you, you whitewashed wall." Are you whitewashed wall? Verse 3. Because you sit there in judgment of me, verse 3, according to the law, and yet you command me to be struck contrary to the law. And everybody says, hey, you, that's the high priest. Paul'd been away so long, he didn't recognize the high priest. He'd been gone for years and didn't know the change of high priest. And so once they told him that, he apologized, he repented. Because he wanted to live right according to God. Verse 5, I didn't know that he was the high priest. And he says, and it is written, you shall not speak evil of the ruler of thy people. And we looked at Exodus 22:28, 1 Timothy 2, 1 through 3, and Ecclesiastes 10:20 for those. So he begins that way. And then as the trial progresses, he notices that there's a division. There's Sadducees and there's Pharisees. And he very brilliantly, remember, this is a man who was brought up at the feet of Gamaliel. He knew the law forward, backwards, upside down, and reverse. One more coming. Well, I just turned the page. I sneezed so hard to turn the page. Anyhow, he very geniusly pits them one against one another and causes such an argument by just simply declaring, I believe in the resurrection and am called in question about my belief in the resurrection. Thank you, Rita. I need all the blessing I can get. And so that created such a tug of war against him, because one of the Sadducees were going to rip him one way and the Pharisees were going to rip him the other way. You can't have him. He's a heretic. He believes in the resurrection. No, you can't have him. We believe with him. He's one of us. Type of a situation. Thank you, Gloria. Well, I mean, that Lysias had to rescue him again. Okay, so Jesus tells him, don't worry, I got your back. Again, I'm paraphrasing. But the idea is that I've got your back. He says, be of good cheer, Paul, for as you have testified to me in Jerusalem, so must you also bear witness, or must you bear witness of also in Rome. And then during this period, or shortly thereafter, a plot is discovered to kill Paul. So Lysias takes proactive steps to prevent that from happening by simply taking 270 soldiers and sending him down to Caesarea to be tried by Felix, the governor. So he sends a letter putting himself in the best possible light. I mean, hey, there was this guy, and I knew he was a Roman. He was being ripped to shreds by the Jews. I came in and rescued him. And, so then I have found out about a plot hatched to kill him. And so I'm sending him to you for you to, because, this is above my pay grade to figure it out. So he sends this letter down to Caesarea to Felix, and when Felix reads this letter, he investigates a little bit deeper. Hey, Paul, what province are you from? Hey, I'm from Cilicia. And when he hears that he's from Cilicia, he said, okay, I'll hear you. But we're going to wait until your accusers come. And so he kept him in Herod's judgment hall. And we reference back to the Herod that was eaten of worms back in Acts chapter 11?
I think 13.
13.
And 13 there, I think.
No, 12.
Yeah, 12, that's right. That's
Acts 12. And
James is killed. Go ahead.
Sam, that is a good question, but that is not does not pertain to the book of Acts. So that is something that we perhaps should entertain on a different evening edification, because that is a question of perspective and doctrine. So let's keep Acts class going with Acts class. And so with that, we leave Paul in Herod's judgment hall awaiting his accusers, and we turn the study over to Acts chapter 24 and CJ.
Alright, and I turn the study right back over to you to read 1 through 9.
1 through 9.
1 through 9.
I wanted to eat my animal cracker.
Well, sorry, you're reading for me. Hee hee.
And after 5 days, Alicia, we're in Acts 24, verse 1. Pay attention, my dear. I did say that, Alicia. Yes, I did. We turn it over to Acts 24 and CJ. Those are my exact words. So, now, you want me to replay the video? Well, you'll have to wait till it finishes.
We have video evidence.
Hi, Oshea. Okay. Now, after 5 days, Ananias, the high priest, came down with the elders and a certain orator, named Tertullus. These gave evidence to the governor against Paul. And when he was called upon, Tertullus began his accusation, saying, "Seeing that through you we enjoy great peace and prosperity is being brought to this nation by your foresight. We accept it always and in all places, most notable Felix, with all thankfulness. Nevertheless, not to be tedious to you any further, I beg you to hear by your courtesy a few words from us." Hello, Sister T and Craig. "For we have found this man a plague, a creator of dissension among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. He even tried to profane the temple, and we seized him and wanted to judge him according to our law. But the commander Lysias came by and with great violence took him out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come to you. By examining him yourself, you may ascertain all these things which we accuse him." And the Jews also assented, maintaining that these things were so.
Alright, so at the end of 23, we see that that Herod says, Felix says, "I will hear you when your accuser comes," and so 5 days later, in 24:1, we have the high priest came down with the elders, and they brought this order. If I understand this right, this would be a lawyer on their side who can speak fancily. I guess. I guess not. Not a lawyer for Paul, but you're muted.
An orator is simply someone who is known for his ability to speak. Okay. Now, in the Greek and Roman days, people put on orations, wherein they would read from the classics. They would well, not the classics, of course. Back then, who knows what the classics would be, but they would be those who would read poems or like this, for example. By this time, Homer's Iliad or the Odyssey were written, and so they would be reading things like this and putting on these great speeches, and people would come. This was entertainment. And so, yes, in this case, particularly, Tertullus was um, someone who could speak for them, who
Right.
was, who, I mean, it doesn't tell us that Tertullus was a lawyer, but he was definitely someone who knew how to speak and would have been someone who could approach Felix in a way that the common man could not.
Right. He could present it in the most flowery way possible so as to for the Jews to get the result they wanted. And really that's all we see him doing in verses 2 through 4. He says when he's called upon to toy, you're gonna have to say that name for me again. Sorry.
Tertullus?
Tertullus. Am I doing it right?
Yep,
Tertullus.
yep.
Tertullus says, look, Felix, we enjoy great peace from you. You're a great leader. You bring prosperity to the nations. We love you. Something that the Jews would never say unless they wanted something, by the way. But we love you. You're great. Uh, but nevertheless, we need something for you from you. If you just hear this tedious matter that we have, uh, I beg you to hear it, verse 4. And he calls Paul, he really goes from flowery to really what I'm thinking is destructive or vicious. I don't know uh, how to describe it, but he really turns the language because he says, now we have this plague, and his name is Paul. Basically, he is a
Plague.
ring.
Plague,
What
not pledge. Plague,
I
not
said,
pledge.
plague.
It sounded like a pledge to me. Sorry.
No, I said plague. Plague. Yeah.
Okay.
We have this plague. You thought COVID was bad. Here's Paul the plague. Uh, and he is a creator of disputes among the Jews throughout all the world. Wow, this guy has great popularity.
Alicia, we are in verse
Sorry,
5.
verse 1. It doesn't help that I'm kind of telling the story. Sorry, I should be saying what verse I'm in. But we found this man a plague, a creator of dissensions among all the Jews throughout the world. This guy is causing problems. And he's of the sect of the Nazarene. Uh, so that's interesting. Uh, I'm, is this referring to Christianity? Uh, that's
Who was
what
who was
I
who was Jesus
read. Jesus of Nazareth.
of Nazareth?
Uh, right,
So he was
Nazareth.
from since he was from Nazareth, he would be called a Nazarene.
So he is one of those Nazareth guys following
Ah,
Jesus.
nope.
He's a Nazarene. He's a follower of
That's
Jesus of
better.
Nazareth. He's
That
one of
brings
those
that brings up a
Nazarene.
question though. That brings up because you threw it in there. So let's go ahead and address it if you don't mind. Can you answer that question? Is there a difference between the Nazarene and the Nazarite?
The Nazarite is somebody from Nazareth, and a Nazarene is somebody who has taken a particular vow, and it is a vow in relation to their relationship to God. Flip it. Nazarene is for Nazareth. Nazarite is the vow. Sorry, I get those confused. So,
Was Jesus a Nazarite?
no.
We're never told Jesus was a Nazarite, are we? In fact, didn't they accuse him of being a what? A wine bibber?
Right.
Now, a Nazarite is not allowed to even partake of grapes, anything that comes from the fruit of the vine.
Right.
John the Baptist was a Nazarite. He did not come from Nazarene.
Right.
So these pictures that you see where people try to depict Jesus as a long-haired hippie freak or as a Nazarite is absolutely incorrect, because remember, only the Nazarites were allowed in Jewish custom, in Jewish law, to wear their hair long.
That was part of a covenant that they made.
It was
right?
part of their covenant, right? It's what set
Now,
them apart and showed that they were Nazarites.
right.
So, and if they came among the defiled, what did they have to do? If they came near a dead body, if somebody died right next to them, what they had to do?
Hands off, man.
Here comes the hair. And they had to begin after their purification, they had to begin their vow again. Jesus, how many times did he go near dead bodies? How many times did
he raised the dead?
How many times did he go near lepers? Those who were considered unclean. So when we stop and we consider that, Jesus was not in any way, shape, or form a Nazarite. He was a Nazarene, which means he came from or had lived in Nazareth. And that is why there was the sect of the Nazarenes, those who followed the person from Nazareth.
You mean Jesus ate that? So, anyways, Tertullus says.
Shall we address some of the comments just to catch up?
Oh, sorry.
I'll field the comments real quick for you.
Go ahead.
Sam says, I pray that we can make the same claim Paul said. He lived in good conscience towards God. Paul is a good example for us to follow, or for us how to follow Christ. 1 Corinthians 11:1. Be imitators of me, even as I am of Christ. Sam says, did they believe only a few were able to be allowed or to read the Word of God?
For what?
That is an interesting question, because remember, one of the things that they commented about the apostles was that they took note of them, that they were unlearned and ignorant men, but that they had been with Jesus. In fact, they also commented about Jesus. How do you know all this having never learned your letters? Well, Jesus was God. He's the one that wrote all that law, right?
Right.
But just because he may not have wrote the letters does not mean he didn't know how to read or how to write.
Right.
What they're dealing with is, how do you know this having been not instructed in the law like we are? So Some people, yes, some people were unlearned. Some people refused to learn the languages or refused to learn how to read or write. It wasn't necessarily a common thing. It wasn't an uncommon thing. Your slaves, for example, were not necessarily taught how to read or write. Um, but that doesn't mean your run of the mill people didn't know how to read or write. In fact, in Rome, it was actually required of its higher citizens of its citizens to get an education. Um, Even your women knew how to read and to write. Uh, Sam says they sure didn't want to let go of the old law after all that Jesus and the apostles had done. Well, after all that Jesus had done, but then again, remember they didn't believe that Moses was past. O'Shea says the Nazarene is the guy that comes from the place, and as a rite, Nazarite is a vow of purity and separation, devotion to God. So it's a rite, R-I-T-E. Nazarite is someone of old who took an oath. Nazarenes is a place where they come from.
Thank you, O'Shea. That's a helpful way to put it. Nazarite. They made that right. They made the vow. Thank you.
Sam says, "You mean Jesus ain't that German painting of long hair and blue eyes?" And then O'Shea says, "Remember when Jesus got separated from his parents, where was he found? Learning and questioning the law in the temple with the scribes, and they were amazed at his understanding and um, his questions."
12 years old.
12 years old.
So, so Tertullus continues. This guy is from the sect of the Nazarenes. He is a ringleader. He is this prominent fellow of this Jesus movement, which is really a compliment. They were meaning it as Tertullus was meaning it as a compliment then, but if you really think about it, that's who Jesus was identified with. Oh, excuse me. That's who Paul was identified with Jesus. He follows this guy from Nazareth. And may that be said of us, May this be our charge. He's been with this Jesus guy. Uh, I think that's cool. And so, did y'all think we were finally out of chapter 21 and the hoopla that gone on there? Well, Tertullus brings that back up. He was also found.
Verse 6.
He also was trying to profane the temple, and we seized him and wanted to judge him ourselves according to our law. But the commander Lysias came by with
7.
great violence, took him out of our hands, commanding his accusers to
8.
come to you. We would have been in charge of this guy. We would have done this ourselves, but to the commander, Claudius, uh, Claudius took him out of our hands, and right, I got the name straight, right? Claudius is the commander.
Claudius Lysias, yes.
Lysias came and took him out of our hands, and now we have
Alicia, you shouldn't have taken him so violently.
what?
A voice from the office goes, "Really?"
So, he shakes his head. Right.
Shua
So,
calls her Lysias. She doesn't pronounce Alicia. She says Lysias.
well, Alicia, uh,
How I got you doing it? Lysias took him by violence.
the guy with the L took him by the. So, well, Lucius came out by great violence, took him from our hands, commanding his accusers to come to you. Now it's in you, ballpark. Here's what's happened, and now he's before you. And the Jews said, "Yep, everything that they just said is true. That happened." And now, uh, in the next section, I'll throw it over to you, but I'll just set it up. Uh, in the next section, Paul gives his defense. Here's the setup, here's the Paul's been this guy's trouble. Now we're gonna hear from Paul.
Well, before we
Yeah,
get to
brother.
the next, yeah, I was going to say before we get to the next section, um, thank you, CJ, because that's actually a pretty good synopsis of this section, this first section. Um, Notice all the baloney that Tertullus throws in there. We accept it always. He says, "Seeing that we enjoy by thee great quietness and very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence." Does it make you want to throw up yet?
Uh, I mean, I mean, that's the exact opposite of what all the Jews thought. These Romans are.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about a stiff-necked and rebellious people that have been
Right.
constantly being a thorn in the Romans' flesh. I mean, killing their governors, killing their soldiers, walking up, hey, oh, hey, what happened? This guy just suddenly fell over.
What do
This
you
is
think?
not, this is not at all what the Jews have been thinking, feeling, or enjoying, especially not that great peace. We accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness. Like I said, to make one throw up yet. Now, he says, "Notwithstanding that I be not further tedious." And Felix is going, "Yes, thank you. Shut up." Or at least I am.
Right.
I pray that he's saying, okay, I don't want to bore you any further. That's what he's saying by saying, lest we be more, lest we be further tedious. I don't want to continue to bore you. And he says, "I pray that you would hear us of thy clemency or of thy kindness." Basically, as William Shakespeare would later render this type of sentiment in his play Julius Caesar: "Friends, Romans, fellow countrymen, lend me your ear." That's what Tertullius is saying. Lend me your ear. Be kind enough to lend me. Just let me say a few words.
Let me tell you. Let
Reba's
me
like,
tell. Well, let me tell you how awful this guy is. I just find it funny how he is To me, it sounds like he totally switches his tone. For we have found this man a plague.
Well, yeah, I mean he goes from being obsequious or ingratiating, trying to butter Felix up, to becoming very bitter and presenting a diatribe of accusation against Paul. I read it, Teresa. He just didn't read it out loud. I mean, I put it up there. CJ didn't read it. You're going to have to read it, CJ.
To want to learn at 12, amazing how much knowledge Jesus got from the teaching. What?
We were talking about how Jesus was sitting at the feet of the
Oh,
scribes.
yeah. Yeah.
Jesus didn't just get it from those teachers. He was giving it, Teresa. That was
Right.
the amazing thing.
That's amazing. Hey,
Because go ahead.
we never seen this in the law before. How
Yeah.
old are you, kid?
From the mouth of babes. Okay, so then, like you said, he switches up to being very vitriolic, very, and I'm using these $1,000 words here, very bitter, very stinging in his tone. We have found this man a pestilence, or a pestilent fellow, a plague, a mover of sedition. Now, of course, what is that going to say to the Romans? Aha, this is our instigator. This is one of those people who are stabbing this is one who's causing riots and fomenting discord and
Yeah.
dissension.
Really,
That's
what?
what he's trying to put into the mind of Felix.
Yeah. How can I make this guy a political problem so that Felix would care? You know,
Right.
he exactly he really wouldn't care if he stopped at. He even tried to profane the temple. Get him! He would be like, get out of here, see to it yourself, you know?
And like I said, he's a ringleader. I mean, this is a man who's moving sedition, who's promoting uprisings and riots. But it isn't just here at home, here in Jerusalem. What's he say? Back in verse 5, Alicia.
The whole world, right? Uh, Throughout the world, and then, yeah, throughout the
Among
world.
all the Jews throughout the world. Now, it's not going among the Greeks, it's only among the Jews.
Right.
This is why you have such a thorny problem among the Jews all over the world, is because of this man. And he's a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. You see, what we have here is this moving. We alluded to it in another, was it last night? It might have been last night, but anyway, this moving out from underneath. Christianity's under this umbrella of Judaism to the Romans, and we now see that they are believed to be a sect of Judaism. Okay. And we see this separation occurring because it is under the reign of Nero that this really comes out and starts moving into the realm of Roman persecution in addition to the Jewish persecution. Up to this point in time, it was just Jewish persecution. The Jews were using the Romans to carry out a lot of their persecution, as we saw throughout a lot of the trip of of Paul's missionary trips. Prior to this, for example, the Philippian jailer, the incident with the Philippian jailer. But now we have that separation. He is a sect of the Nazarenes. We don't even claim him. And we've already kind of discussed the sect of the Nazarenes because that's a sect that alludes to Jesus,
Right.
who has also gone about to profane the temple. Well, Jews were had tended um, to riot anyway, and so if they're going to accuse someone of profaning the temple, what's that going to lead to? A riot of the Jews.
Right. And they don't want that.
He's also gone about to profane the temple. Of course, that's here's a reason why we're rioting. This man, he's the reason. He's a reason. And we took him and we would have judged him, right? Verse 6, Alicia. According to our law, we wouldn't. We thought we would have taken care of this problem and nothing would have, wouldn't have bothered anybody. But I mean, it wouldn't have even you wouldn't have even had to have been disturbed, oh noble Felix, but for Lysias, the chief captain, who took him by great violence out of our hands. We wouldn't have even had to worry about it. It would have been taken care of and everything would have been fine. We would have judged him according to the law and he would have. But no, that couldn't be. Lysias couldn't leave anything, couldn't leave well alone. Verse 7. He took him out of our hands and he commanded us to come down here and bother you. Now, yeah, you can examine Lysias. Verse 8. You can examine Lysias. You may know all of these things which we accuse him. So you can you can look at this as by examining Lysias or by examining Paul or by examining both. Either way, anyway, both ways work. It equally refers to either one of them. And specifically by Paul, though, as we look at this in relation to Paul, by examining Paul yourself, you may ascertain all these things which we accuse him of. And like Paul, I can't even spell your name right. Like CJ said, the Jews all said, "Yep, he's right. Yep, marvelously spoken. Hey, good job, Tertullius. Thank you. You said that just perfectly. Couldn't said it better than myself." Exactly, he said it right.
Yeah. And so the church.
He uses a lot of words to basically say nothing. And then he finally gets to the charges, and there's still nothing. Go ahead.
Right. Basically, they say Paul's guilty. We couldn't do anything because of you, guy, your commander, a commander. So he's here now, and all of you say, "Yeah, what do you say?"
What's really interesting about it is Roman citizenship does not come into play here. It's almost as if they still don't know he's a Roman citizen. Because if they have judged him by their law without giving him a Roman trial, what would that have done once they found out he was a Roman citizen?
That would look terrible, and they would have been punished for it.
Yeah. The entire town of Jerusalem, city of Jerusalem, would have been punished severely for it. Not that it never happened. They usually have a way of causing these troublemakers to vanish. But it still would not have been very nice. Sam says, they always refuse to let go of the old law of Moses and come to the light, Jesus. The Jews had their pride. They wanted the glory of man, not of God. Well, that's absolutely true. But I want you to think, though, Sam, how often do we do the same? We look at the Jews and we accuse them of being stiff necked and proud. Yet we often hold to our own traditions, even in the face of what is blatantly given to us or shown to us to be false. But we still want to hold on to it. If we don't approach our life and examine it in light of scriptures, being willing to change our life and our traditions, well, this is the way we've always done things. Yeah, but the Bible says that this. Yeah, well, this is the way we've always done things. If we're not willing to change, we're just as guilty as the Jews of Jesus and Paul's day.
Right.
We're just like them. We can sit here on our couches in our armchairs and point the fingers at the Jews and their neckedness. Stiff neckedness. That sounds wrong. Their pride and their stubbornness, but in reality, there's three other fingers pointing right back at us. You and I were the ones who are just as guilty of putting Christ on the cross. And we're still guilty of not wanting to bend the knee or the neck at times. When we let our sin, when we let our lust and our desires get in the way of what Christ says is right, what are we doing? We're being just like the Jews, right?
Right. So, unfortunately, we are out of time. There's probably a lot more that can be said. But Paul's going to speak next week. Uh, we're going to hear a sermon from Paul. Well, a defense from Paul. So join us next week as our speaker will be the Apostle Paul. But
What would be
thank
really
you
funny
all.
is if we had Paul join us to do that.
Well, thank
No.
you all for being here. And remember, here at CEM, we want to do three things. We want to glorify God, edify the saints, and answer any spiritual questions you may have. Thank you all, and God bless.
That way, whether we wake tomorrow to serve God here on this earth, or we wake tomorrow to serve Him up there in heaven, you know where we'll be, for we'll see you then. God bless.